Hi, I'm Rachel Alday, and this is the Hospitality Breakroom, a podcast full of nuggets, secret sauce, drinking the Kool-Aid with hits of dopamine, dishing, throwing spaghetti at the wall, crap sandwiches, and word salads. This season, I will offer up my craziest stories to shed light on what we've learned from the countless mistakes we've made along our 16-year journey in the chaotic and rewarding world of vacation rentals. In this first season, each episode will feature a member of our team sharing their expertise and sense of humor to entertain you and make you feel seen and inspired. So stop standing in front of that open fridge or awkwardly looking at your shoes while you wait for your microwave meal to be done. It's time to bring your lunch over to the table, pull up a chair, and sit next to me so I can tell you everything I know here in the Hospitality Breakroom. Hi, I'm Rachel Alday, and this is the Hospitality Breakroom podcast. Today's episode is not episode 1. We are calling this episode the Tour of the Breakroom. It will be the introductory episode that you can listen to before you dive into all the rest of the episodes to decide if this is for you. So we're going to share with you a few different points about what we're trying to do with this podcast. And from that, hopefully you can decide if this is the right podcast for you to stream for the rest of the day and listen to as many episodes as you can, or maybe pass if it's not for you. Okay, so we're going to start with sharing our goals. Our goals with this podcast are to provide anecdotal and tactical information because we want to be able to uncover insights from what we've done as a business and share this with other people. We want to be having in every further episode 2 guests. And for this first season, our 2 guests are going to be from the Abode Luxury Rentals team. So my husband and I own Abode Luxury Rentals. We have been in business for over 16 years, and we have an amazing team of people, almost 60 people that work for us. Many of them have worked for us for many years. And so not only have my husband and I developed a lot of expertise and insight into our business and in this industry in general, but so have a lot of people on our team. Many people have worked with us for so many years, and they really are experts in their individual areas of the business. So our plan is to bring 2 guests to every episode and to share insights from people like the frontline workers who are doing operations, inspections, housekeeping. We're going to bring in people from marketing, reservation sales, guest services, operations, and revenue management. So all these people on our team, and we'll bring in people who have great experience, and then we want to be able to let them talk about their actual experience in working in this business, dealing with guests and homeowners, and have them share their stories and all the insights that they have uncovered over the years. And then we also, as another part of sharing that, what we want to be doing here is connecting with our team members and with anyone who's listening to the podcast so that we can share, learn, and kind of grow our understanding of hospitality and our sense of belonging in the industry and in the company as much as we can. So those are our main goals. But in order to give anyone who's listening, and maybe there's only 2 people, but whoever is listening, we want to give you a sense of who I am and why do you care what I have to say. So my story is that my husband and I started Abode Luxury Rentals 16 years ago. We started the business in Park City, Utah. And over the last 16 years, we've gotten to the point where we currently manage about 152 properties in Park City. We expanded 11 years ago into Jackson Hole as well. And we currently manage, I think, 48 properties in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And then within the past year, we also expanded into Sun Valley, Idaho, and we currently manage 7 properties there. So we are in mountain markets, and we have an established brand that we've built over these many years. And throughout all the time that we've been in business, we haven't taken a distinctly strategic approach. We did not have much of a growth plan when we started. In fact, we never planned on expanding to any markets besides Park City. Everything that happened with our business was super organic, and we kind of just went with the flow and let the industry and the changes in the economy and people that we knew and our network of friends and family is sort of informed our growth. It wasn't something that we planned out really strategically. And so that made our growth a lot slower and maybe not as exciting as some other companies. but it definitely afforded us the ability to make a zillion, billion mistakes. And from many of those mistakes, learn some really good lessons. And so through all of that, I think that we realized that we're lucky to have learned all the lessons that we have, and we're ready to share that with anyone who is willing to listen. So that's me. That's my work life. Outside of that, I have 3 kids. I have an 11-year-old boy named Bear, a 9-year-old boy who's named Major, and a 7-year-old daughter named Annabelle. We live mainly in Park City, but we do travel back and forth to Jackson Hole and Sun Valley to help with our teams that we have locally there as well. So that's me. Now, why did I decide to start this podcast? Well, I can tell you that I have been thinking about doing this podcast for a couple of years. Um, Years and years ago, when I first heard about the Ski to Sea Sarah and T podcast, became obsessed listening to that constantly because before that podcast, we really hadn't attended many conferences, and I hadn't heard any other podcasts that were coming out of our industry in vacation rentals. And so I was so excited to have a chance to hear someone talking about the industry that I was so passionate about. And it was like I never had felt so seen or so understood until I heard that podcast. So I obsessively listened to all the episodes, and I would send the episode links to my team. And, at that point, I started to realize how amazingly impactful a good podcast can be, specifically if it's, directed at an industry like ours that is so fragmented and where there's just so many of us out in all these different areas, sort of operating on our own. So at that point, that's when I realized how important podcasts could be. And then over time, and I would say over the last 5 or 6 years, my husband and I have started attending more and more of the conferences. And in attending conferences, I get approached by people saying, "Oh, you have Abode Luxury Rentals. That's so cool. I've heard about your company." And I found that to be like shocking because I had no idea that anyone out in my greater industry of vacation rentals even knew that our company existed. And so people were approaching me and saying like, "Wow, you guys do amazing guest services, or you have such a great brand. Like, can you tell me more about how you built that or what you're doing?" And honestly, I was shocked. I I had no idea that anyone in our industry was aware of us. And I guess I was barely aware of other companies. And I had no idea that people were respecting what we did and that they were looking up to us for some of the things that we were doing with our business. So that was so inspiring to me. And it made me feel so proud. And it also made me realize that my team, who are the people that are doing most of the work, so much of the work that they're doing to help build this reputation for us and to help make our guests and homeowners so happy. Like my team they had less idea than I did in terms of how we were being received out in our industry in general. Like I knew that I had no idea that was happening, and I knew my team had really no idea. And so, short of me bringing all the people on our team to conferences all the time so that they could get that positive feedback too, so that they could understand how much of an expert other people think they are in this industry and how much of an expert they really are. Short of me bringing them to the conferences for that sole purpose, I started to think about how I could find ways to help my team uh, understand, like, really the impact that they have, not only in their job with the homeowners and the guests, but the impact that they have inspiring others in our industry. So, slowly but surely, I decided, "Ooh, what about a podcast? We could do a podcast and we could bring in people from our team and we could let them tell their stories about stories they have with guest interactions, homeowner interactions, and all the entertainment value and hilariousness that comes from those stories, but also for them to share, like, actual tactical um, skills that they use, actual things they do in work every day to solve all the problems, to help all the people." And I started to realize that my team has all this knowledge that would be so helpful to other people in our industry. And I wanted to give them a chance to share that knowledge and then also to possibly, hopefully, receive feedback so that they could in turn realize just how amazing they are at their job, just how much expert level they have achieved, and then just how much that they can help other people. Because I do think that building our business, there was so much grind and grit involved in, the very beginning days when we started the company with no investment, with no money, fully bootstrapping it and not knowing what we're doing and making so many mistakes and learning from those mistakes over the years. And, sometimes we forget how important it is to stop and be thankful for where we've gotten to, and also to take a step back and realize that, once we built the business, we got out of the stage of constant fear and constant grind. And now we've reached a level where we kind of know what we're doing and we can, we're always working to improve, but we're getting to this place of success. And I am realizing that now is the time to share what we've learned with other people. Like that's what we need to be focusing on, along with the business, along with, being excellent with our clients and with our homeowners and all of that. We also need to make sure that we're doing something to help others. And so I think that myself and my team, we have so much to share. And so that's what one of the main goals is here. Okay, so that's really the reasoning behind why I decided to start the podcast. So, who is this podcast for? Well, I mean, anyone, but probably the people that would be the most interested would be people in the vacation rental industry, people that consider themselves maybe not in the rental industry, but maybe they think of themselves in the STR industry. I think those people would be interested too. Any sort of hospitality junkies. We all know that hospitality extends much farther than just vacation rentals or STR, that it also extends to obviously hotels, but also development and restaurants and all sorts of things. And so to me, anyone who loves hospitality might find some value in this podcast. And then, of course, there's all of our varied vendors that we love. And there's so many vendors that we work with that we love so much. And then there's so many vendors that we haven't even gotten to know or understand yet, but that we want to get to know at these upcoming conferences. So I think all those people might be interested. And then there's something that I always say, which is the kind of people that I want to hire are the kind of people that get a hit of dopamine from helping others. And I think anyone who gets a hit of dopamine from helping others is an expert in hospitality, whether they know it yet or not. And those people would probably like this podcast too. So, where will this podcast take us? Well, what we're hoping to do is to showcase nuggets of well-worn, tried and true lessons and stories to entertain and inspire. So we're hoping that all these little pieces of information that we have developed through grinding it out over these many years in vacation rentals, now is the time we're ready to try and share that in a easy to understand, easy to digest way. So that's where we're hoping that this podcast will take us. Also, I'm hoping to include my own insights because I have been an obsessive sponge. Self-development is something that I sort of got into over the last, I don't know, I guess 5 years or so. Probably COVID set me into a bit of a deep dive there. And that led me into a whole concept of building a library for our business. So I'm going to squirrel off onto a little side note right now, but I'm sitting in front of part of our library at our office in Park City. And what happened was I started getting into reading self-development books. And one of the first ones I read was a book by Tony Hsieh called Delivering Happiness. If you don't know that book, you should look it up or call me. I have it in my library. And I read that book and I found it incredibly inspiring. And in that book, he had a list of books that he would have his team at Zappos read, and then he would pay the team members if they read one of the books and did a little report on it. And I was so inspired by that because when I read Delivering Happiness, once I finished it, all I could think of was like, oh my gosh, my whole team needs to read this book. I became obsessed with like, oh, I learned all these really valuable pieces of information. And I wish that my team knew this too. Like, how can I share this with them? I somehow have to get them to read this book. And then when I saw his list of books from his library that he had at Zappos, then I started reading those books that he recommended. And the first book that I read out of that library from Zappos was Tribal Leadership. So I read Tribal Leadership. It completely changed the way that I looked at our competition, the way that I understood myself. And my place as a leader. And that book had this huge impact on me. So then I started to become obsessed with getting my entire team to read that book. So all of this led into me deep diving into all sorts of self-development books. And then somehow I became obsessed with sharing those books with my team. So I copied Tony Hsieh's Zappos library concept, and I started buying multiple copies of each of these books that I started reading. And it just grew and grew and grew in terms of the quantity of books. And then so I like to listen to books. I like to listen to them on Audible, and I don't usually read hard copy books. There's a lot of reasons for that. We could go into that in another episode. But so now what we do is we will buy either the Audible version or the print version of any of the books that are in our library for anyone on our team, and they can pick whenever they want to read a book and what book they want to read. And then if they write a short report, we pay them $150. And that has turned into this really cool concept on the team because some people, maybe they really need more money because of something going on in their life. Well, that incentivizes them to go and read more awesome business and self-development books, which helps them financially, but also helps them grow as a person. Or maybe somebody just sees a book on the shelf that they really think is cool and they read it and then they realize, hey, if I write a few sentence report, I can get $150. So it's been a huge tool for our team to help develop themselves and for us to help inspire the team, keep them motivated. And it's been super awesome. And so I think that fact has just been really, really important in what we do. And I think that that could potentially impact, where this podcast goes in the future. But I do think the concept of self-development and the Abode Library is definitely something we want to share as we move forward as well. And then finally, I mentioned this before, but Abode as a company was built not strategically, but sort of it was built on the ebb and flow, the organic sort of changing and growing process. And that's what I want for this podcast as well. I want, and maybe it's not even what I want, it's just what I know is going to happen because that's how things happen in our lives around here. So I feel like as an entrepreneur and as someone, especially in the vacation rental industry, we have to be so flexible. We have to be open to change, to changing what we think our goal is or how we're going to get there. And we have to be ready to let that next step happen organically. And so that is how I'm thinking about this podcast as well. To me, we have a goal, we have some plans, we have some steps to take, but we're also going to keep our minds open so that we can see as this progresses where it's going to go next. We're not going to hem it in with too many boundaries. We're just going to create some awesome, useful, helpful content and then see where it goes. So hopefully after hearing all of this, one or two people will be left still listening and they'll want to come back for our first official episode. Hopefully, if that's you, you won't stop here. You'll come back for episode 2. And we really look forward to welcoming you into the Hospitality Breakroom. Thank you.